Warthogs of the Maasai Mara, resilient survivors of the African savanna. The warthogs of the Maasai Mara represent one of Africa's most distinctive and widely distributed wild pig species, inhabiting the diverse ecosystems throughout this renowned wildlife region. Instantly recognizable by their formidable curved tusks, remarkably sparse hair covering and sturdy compact build, these remarkable animals cut an unmistakable silhouette across the savanna landscape. Beyond their striking physical features, warthogs play a vital ecological role as integral members of the savanna food chain, serving as both predators of smaller organisms and prey for the region's larger carnivores, while simultaneously shaping their habitat through their characteristic behaviors of wallowing and foraging, which aerate the soil and influence vegetation patterns across the Maasai Mara ecosystem. Warthogs of Maasai Mara. The warthogs that roam the Maasai Mara possess a distinctly formidable appearance, shaped by millions of years of evolution in East Africa's demanding savanna environment. Their most striking feature is undoubtedly their impressive tusks, elongated canine teeth that curve upward and outward, serving as both defensive weapons and tools for excavating roots and tubers from the hard-packed earth. Complementing these tusks are the characteristic wart-like protrusions that give these animals their name. These fleshy growths appear on their cheeks and lower jaw, particularly pronounced in mature males who use them as protective padding during aggressive encounters with rival warthogs. Beneath their weathered skin lies a coat of coarse, sparse hair that ranges from dark brown to blackish tones, with a distinctive mane of longer hair running along their spine, while their muscular, compact frames, built low to the ground with powerful shoulders and hindquarters, reflect their adaptation to the Mara's terrain, where they must navigate dense grasslands and make quick escapes from predators. Sexual dimorphism is readily apparent among Maasai Mara warthogs, as males typically dwarf their female counterparts, weighing up to 80 kilograms compared to females averaging around 50 kilograms. A size difference that underscores the male's need for greater strength in territorial disputes and mating competition within this competitive ecosystem. Warthogs of Maasai Mara. Habitat and distribution. Warthogs maintain a widespread presence throughout the grasslands and woodland areas of Maasai Mara, demonstrating remarkable adaptability to the reserve's diverse ecosystems. These sturdy animals show a distinct preference for regions situated near reliable water sources and areas abundant with vegetation, as such locations provide both essential hydration and the plant materials that form the foundation of their diet. The warthog's distribution across the reserve is not static, however. Rather, they exhibit pronounced seasonal movement patterns that are intricately linked to fluctuations in rainfall and the corresponding availability of food resources. During periods of adequate precipitation, when grasses flourish and water becomes plentiful, warthogs disperse more widely across the landscape, taking advantage of the rich feeding opportunities. Conversely, as the dry season approaches and water sources dwindle, these animals tend to concentrate in areas where permanent water holes and drought-resistant vegetation persist, creating predictable gathering zones that both predators and wildlife enthusiasts have come to recognize. Warthogs of Maasai Mara. Feeding habits and diet. Warthogs in the Maasai Mara are primarily grazers, spending much of their day consuming the abundant grasses and vegetation that characterize the savanna landscape. What makes these animals particularly distinctive is their unusual feeding posture. They kneel on their front legs while lowering their heads to access ground-level plants, a behavior that allows them to reach tender shoots and grasses that would otherwise be difficult to obtain. This kneeling position, which can appear almost prayer-like to observers, is a remarkable adaptation that demonstrates the warthog's remarkable flexibility, despite their robust build. However, warthogs are opportunistic feeders, and when grasses become scarce during drier seasons, they supplement their diet with roots, bark, and even carrion, showcasing their resourcefulness in the ever-changing environment of the Mara. This dietary versatility ensures their survival throughout the year, enabling them to thrive in conditions that might challenge other herbivorous species. Warthogs of Maasai Mara. The warthogs inhabiting the Maasai Mara have evolved a distinctive social structure that reflects their survival strategies in the African savanna, with females and their offspring gathering in tight-knit family units known as sounders, typically comprising a mother and her young from multiple generations who forage and shelter together for mutual protection and shared resources. In striking contrast to these family groups, mature males adopt a largely solitary existence, occasionally joining temporary bachelor groups during the dry season when water sources concentrate in limited areas, allowing them to interact briefly before returning to their independent ranges. Communication among these gregarious and seemingly ungainly creatures belies a sophisticated system of social coordination, achieved through an impressive repertoire of grunts, squeals, and distinctive snorts that convey warnings of predators, signals of contentment, and calls to gather or disperse, while their body language, including ear positioning, tail movements, and the characteristic backing stance into their burrows, communicates intention and emotional state to both family members and potential rivals across the golden grasslands of this iconic reserve. The reproductive cycle of Maasai Mara's warthogs is, well, intricately synchronized with the region's rainfall patterns. Breeding season really flourishes during the abundant rainy periods when vegetation is lush and food sources are plentiful. Following a gestation period of about 6 months, females give birth to litters of piglets, usually between 2 and 4 offspring, in specially prepared burrows that provide safety from predators and, the harsh savanna elements. These young warthogs remain dependent on their mothers for quite an extended period, staying close to the protective presence of the sow while learning essential survival skills such as foraging techniques, predator awareness, and social behaviors necessary for navigating life in the Maasai Mara ecosystem. The bond between mother and offspring is especially strong during those vulnerable early months, with the piglets gradually gaining independence as they mature and eventually venturing out to establish their own territories or join bachelor groups. In this way, they help perpetuate the warthog population that has, thrived across these African plains for generations. The warthogs inhabiting the Maasai Mara face a relentless gauntlet of predators that really test their resilience at every turn, with lions, hyenas and leopards constantly prowling the savanna in search of prey. Young warthogs, in particular, prove especially susceptible to these formidable hunters, as their developmental years represent a critical vulnerability window when they lack the size, strength and experience necessary to evade or withstand attacks from such powerful carnivores. Beyond the immediate threats posed by wildlife, The warthogs of this region must also contend with escalating human-wildlife conflict in the surrounding areas, where expanding settlements and pastoral activities increasingly encroach upon their habitat. This creates additional pressures that force these resilient creatures to navigate an ever-narrowing space between survival and coexistence with human communities. Within the intricate web of Maasai Mara's ecosystem, warthogs function as essential architects of environmental change. Their constant grazing and vigorous rooting behaviours actively shape the landscape's vegetation patterns and soil structure in ways that, reverberate throughout the entire community of organisms. These stocky, determined creatures serve a dual purpose as both humble foragers and critical food source, providing sustenance for the region's formidable predators, from lions and hyenas to wild dogs and leopards, who really depend on warthog populations to maintain the delicate balance of predator-prey dynamics that keeps the ecosystem in equilibrium. Perhaps most remarkably, the extensive burrow systems that warthogs excavate and occupy become vital shelters for an astonishing array of other animals, including mongoose, porcupines and countless smaller creatures that would otherwise lack adequate refuge from predators and the harsh savanna elements. So, the warthog's simple act of burrowing becomes an act of ecological generosity, sustaining multiple species across the Mara. The warthog populations within Maasai Mara have, maintained a stable presence, thriving under the protective umbrella of the National Reserve's carefully maintained boundaries. These resilient animals benefit significantly from their habitat's official protected status, which shields them from many of the pressures that threaten wildlife in unregulated areas. Park authorities and conservation organisations have implemented comprehensive monitoring programs to track population dynamics and ensure the long-term viability of these distinctive creatures. Through consistent habitat management efforts, including grassland maintenance, water source preservation and predator-prey balance initiatives, the Maasai Mara continues to provide an ideal sanctuary where warthogs can flourish. Their characteristic backward-trotting silhouettes remain a familiar and reassuring sight across the savanna landscape.